Amen. Just going to share our link with somebody. 1 second. Amen. Okay, I can see you now. Good.
I was away.
Oh, you were away as
I
well.
was
Okay.
away. Yeah. Yeah. How
Yeah,
are
we
you?
are a bit. We are. I'm good. We are a bit early. Hang on, I'm just going to arrange something. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, that's better. How are you?
I'm good. So I wanted to ask, were you able to read the mail?
Sorry, what?
I had shared, I had sent you a mail, I think before last week's meeting, I think on Saturday.
Could you please resend it? I'm sorry. I have a lot of
Great. Okay.
unread.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll just resend it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure who will be here today, so let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Just sending out a few texts.
Okay. Okay, so I sent it again.
Thank you. I'll see when it comes through. What did you send it to? Frode@hegland.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, my email server is a bit old at this point. Just give it a minute.
Yeah.
So today we kind of continue on the same thing, but with
Yeah.
some more specific background.
How are you finding the book, the medium design one?
I haven't read much, but I find it really good
Okay.
for inspiration to even think about the whole topic.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, as an inspiration, because although she's an architect and the kind of things she's talking about, thinking through. One doesn't normally find architects engaged in that.
Yeah, Andrea in our group is also an architect and very, very VR focused. I
Yes,
know
I
that's not,
think I have seen her presentation.
yeah, I think you may
This
very
was a
well
few
have.
years back, right?
Yes, and also yeah, last year. Yeah, your book, the one you recommended, is quite different, but it's nice to see those kinds of perspectives coming into it for sure.
Mm. I mean, regarding communication mediums, during last meeting, it made me think of this book. Maybe you're aware, by John Durham Peters, "The Marvelous Clouds." I'll send a link for you. Hi, Tom. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Mohit, Frode, and Peter.
Hello. Sorry, I'm just replying to a message from Mark Henderson, who can't join us. He's doing ACM stuff. He sent something funny, so I'm going to post it in our chat here. Excellent. We are a quorum. Isn't that what they call it?
Depends on the
So,
size of the body. Oh, yes, I've seen this before.
Yeah, I read it a few years back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a classic.
oh, which one are you talking about? Oh, I have to buy that.
The first one, the monks, the
Oh, yeah,
Danish
yeah.
monks.
Norwegian monks, excuse me.
Those are Norwegian? I thought they always thought they were Danish.
Okay, the difference between oh, forget it. Right, let me purchase this
I,
book. Mohit is a very expensive member of our community, I have to say.
Oh, why so?
You make me buy books. It's
yeah, I'm reading this right now.
hang on, I didn't see that.
Jonathan Parshad.
Okay.
This is a book about 1 year of World War II. It's over 1,000 pages long. He's a really good systems thinker, and so he took him 14 years to write this book.
Oh,
And you could
that's
tell.
a long time. Yeah.
He wrote a really important book back in the late 2000s called Shattered Sword, which is the first time anybody had done a real definitive analysis of the Battle of Midway from the Japanese side. And it really
Okay.
changed how people looked at that battle a lot, because obviously when history is written by the victors, that doesn't mean the not victors don't have a story to tell, and that the story is important because you learn from failure, not success, right?
Yeah.
What's the author's name there?
Uh, Jonathan Parshall.
Jonathan Parshall.
I can give you a link to it. I'll drop it in the chat.
You are
There's
obviously
too many
all
things 1942 in there.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of those.
you're obviously
Right.
all familiar with Letters from Iwo Jima, right?
The movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it.
I saw it again. I've seen it a few times. I'll just put in a link to a little kind of a section of it. I saw it again with a close friend this weekend, and it actually fits in our dialogue. So thanks for bringing up that kind of topic, Tom, because Clint Eastwood, politically, let's not even talk about that side of him, but He's made some movies, and Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima are back to back, one from each side.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and it's really well done. Flags of Our Fathers, I feel, was quite weak in the normal life scenes, in little labored. The battle sequences were absolutely extraordinary. But Letters from Iwo Jima is a powerful movie, and it's got a lot of recognition in Japan as well. So it really did manage. And as a traditional media showing two sides of a situation, multidimensional or whatever we talk about, yeah, it does a really good job. Which is kind of related to what we are starting our discussion with today.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I'm always very interested in is systems thinking and the way systems influence how we work mentally, how they shape what we do, and obviously what we're doing with the talking about in the XR thing we're working on is also a system, right? But it's also a product of systems, of how we think about text and how we think about, and unless we understand where that is coming from, it's very difficult to actually change it. Because the big failures are people not understanding systems.
I agree. I agree with that very much. And you know what? Let's jump right into the topic, because that's very, very related. And then we can do kind of the intro, and I'm sure we will return to systems quite a few times today. So here we go. First slide is the same as the last few, figure, ground, and naming. But this next one, do you see that cool animation?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to move the text down. It's kind of special because, MCP stuff, right? I only started with that today. So this is, I talked to Claude about the topic for today, figure and ground, background, foreground, all that. We made a song as usual. And then I said, Claude, tell imagine.art to make an animation based on the song. So I have not told it anything specific at all. And this is what it came up with. Isn't it kind of interesting?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is an AI telling another AI what to do based on discussions earlier. Right.
This looks like a field, you know?
Yeah, it does. It's kind of evocative, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, field is a good metaphor for the kind of thinking that, we are doing here.
Yeah. So
And last week's song was really amazing. Yeah. I heard it yesterday.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it kind of nails it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good, and the textual summary was really good. When I was reading through it, the call was
Yeah.
like, man, it caught the point. It's like,
Yeah. I
it was
thought
like,
so too.
God, it made us look smarter than we were on the conversation.
It is fascinating. In the beginning of these meetings, I got a few things wrong, which misattributed things to people who were rightly furious, absolutely. But, we were experimenting. And now we're at the stage where, as you say, Peter, in some senses, it kind of makes us look even better. So it's interesting. But yeah, just two slides. So this is a user of the systems we've talked about a lot. You have all kinds of things in front of you. By the way, did you see the cool animation? Look, I love Keynote. I just had to show that off. Anyway, seen from above, you have things in front. But what happens when you have things behind you or somewhere else in the room? The reason this came up in our figure and ground discussion, I did a long demo with an American friend who was here for a few days, and he spent a lot of time with the headset. And he was disappointed because in the current implementation of the system that I've built, if you go further forward and you look behind something, there's nothing there. It's partly a rendering issue. We can't have too much text, right? So if this user here turns around, currently there's nothing there. Now, logically, it's a very simple solution. You have the text front and back. So that's not really worth a full discussion. However, this becomes an issue when you have not only a connective line going somewhere useful, but when it goes through the user, that's really actually quite upsetting.
Mm.
So I think that as a kickoff point for today, we could talk about how when we have an environment with stuff everywhere, whether we do this model or it's 360, doesn't really matter. But when you have things far away and you as a human, you're in the middle with your perceptual apparatus, how can you see connections without it being annoying? That was basically the kickoff point.
I mean, there's been work before, drawing lines and having rays out from stuff is, like pulling string, like puppeteering or something like that. You're kind of pulling on things and say, come here, or it's like doing yo-yos or something like that. You can kind of like grab and pull and push back, pull it and back. Usually the interfaces I've been seeing so far, the game ones where you have the ray, so your gaze points at the ray, so you know where the yo-yo is going to go. So you can say, hey, pull that into me. I look at it closely, put it back where it was. So you got kind of an attention thing there to kind of not auto zoom or anything like that, although you could. Auto zoom tends to be kind of annoying, I think, from my limited experience playing with it. Just if you gaze at something and it just pops at you, you got things coming at you. It's kind of scary, actually. It's like being on a roller coaster or something.
So you're saying further interaction to further stretch a line, so to speak.
Yeah,
kind of, right?
I can't be a line coming through you. Like I think you said, it's like having a sword coming at you or something. It's just psychologically wrong. Like,
Yeah, in the early days when we did the Mozilla hubs, we did one where it had one index card and then another one. But even if it wasn't in your head, it felt like a clothes washing wire or something.
yeah.
But now I have a feeling Tom is going to talk about the visual aspect. Because that's obviously we want to make things more visual, but it's really becoming challenging.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I assume you know Don Norman's the design of everyday things.
I have met him a few times, yes.
Okay, but you know the book.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the kind of things that I think, though, that what he talks about in that book is really about in some ways it's bad architectural design or just design in general. And the problem with XR is there are no constraints. You don't have gravity, you don't have structural stability, you don't have all these other things to worry about that if I were building a real room, I would need to worry about. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about where to put the electrical outlets in your space, right? So, but that's both a cursing and a blessing, a curse and a blessing in the sense that without those constraints, you can make doors that don't look like doors or windows that don't look like windows or that don't work. More importantly, that don't work like windows. I mean, he has that one example of this really cool architectural design of glass doors that you can't figure out how to open. They look cool, but they're not functional. And there are many examples of that in this world. You see this all of the time. I think this should be that Don Norman should be required reading for every engineer and architect in the world, but isn't, unfortunately. My son is studying engineering. He's never even heard of it until he only knows about it through me. Um, and so, uh, the that I think we've talked about that Top Gear video with learning the early car systems. And that one car that they end up driving that looks like it was designed for someone with three arms and one leg. And, and that sort of thing happens, right? Because people are engineers first and designers second. And so we get caught up in the engineering side of things, and we lose the design side of things and the iteration side of things. The good news with XR, if you mess that up, it's fairly easy to fix it and no one's going to get hurt in theory. But that iterative aspect that you have with design has to be a part, I think, part of that process. And maybe it's an iterative process, not for the designer, but for the user. And that the designer's job is to give the user the tools to engage in that iterative process. That's something I was actually teaching my class this morning, is that, because one of my frustrations is I'm trying to get them to use AI as an iterative process to help them strengthen their work. And they only ever ask it one question and walk away. And so getting them to iterate with AI is a real struggle. And so what I did over the weekend is I made cartoons to show it, but I also, as a visual thing, but I also, when my in-person class, or I'm actually have a Zoom class like this, and I also have an asynchronous online class. And the synchronous class, I've walked them through a session that I have or I've had done their session for them live in class, so they can see what that iterative process works and how that works. And literally today, I was sitting there, and it occurred to me this morning as I was doing dishes or whatever, I forgot what it was, but that the point system in the summer class doesn't work right. And so I was like thinking to myself, if this happens and this happens and this happens, there's no way they can pass the class. And this was happening to a lot of them. And so I started thinking about, okay, should I just give them an extra 100 points at the end of the trail? And I dropped that into Notebook LM in my pedagogical library. And the first answer was, don't do it. And I was like, why not? And then it said, well, they still have 2 more modules. I'm like, no, you're thinking about the spring class, which has 5 modules. This one only has 3. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Oh, that actually is a really good idea. I mean, it was like, and I did all this in like 10 minutes. But it was, I showed them my thinking process, and it's something that matters a lot to them because it's their grades that I'm playing with there. So they paid attention. But I also copied and pasted it into a Google Doc, and I said, "Look, I did 7 pages worth of work here with the AI in a little over 10 minutes." And but that's because I kept asking questions, because I didn't like the answer, because I needed better explanations, because whatever reason. And one of my students says, "I didn't know you could ask it questions like that." And I'm like, "Hell yeah!"
That's kind of the
And so,
point.
yeah, and that's also what I've been writing about in my Substack recently, is this idea that you can do an iterative process to move yourself up the creativity scale. But yeah, so the question is, I think one question is, to what extent should the user be allowed to design their own environment, as opposed to the designer inflicting that environment upon them?
It's not inflicting.
It is absolutely inflicting. And the most brilliant design in the world is still inflicting.
Nope. Nope. I will fight you on that. I just wanted to say,
Well,
no,
yeah.
I'll fight you after, but we'll go to Mohit. But I just wanted to tell you what I pasted in. I asked Claude how Don Norman's book relates to the issue we're talking about, and that's
Mhm.
the little bit of text there. But Mohit, please go ahead.
No, nothing. I was just reading what you have put in the chat. So.
So, okay,
Yeah.
interrupt me then, Mohit, when you have something, because I'm sure you do. In a good way, Tom, I'm going to fight you over this, because it's really, really interesting. And now I'm being very defensive. There's no question about that. I'm a
I'm a
designer
designer
from,
too. I'm a
yeah, no,
designer
that's true.
too.
No,
So yeah.
also a photographer. So,
Yeah.
we have the visual side in common, but still, to fight for it, as the world is changing, hard skills were more viable. Now soft skills are becoming more viable. And design, to an extent, is a soft skill, because it's a combination of much. There are principles, but like, for instance, with author, I found out a lot of the usability guidelines for type is just doesn't work in that context. And that's
Right.
something you only find out by doing it. So I think that, like right now, I'm trying to teach my son a little bit about how the brain actually works. I don't want him to have to learn things like there's a monkey in your head and all of these analogies, right? Similarly with this, the amount of effort we put into thinking about this is tremendous, right? I literally get super stressed over the fact that some of these things I can't solve. It's very funny because I'm selling myself here as well. I didn't realize that when I started, but in truth, it has value. I agree with you, Tom, that it's super important that people can customize for their own moment and their own perception. Absolutely. But having people investing in the design is really, really important
I
as
didn't say
well.
anything about the value. I said
You said inflicted.
I said inflicted. I did, and I did
Elevated.
that to be deliberately provocative. I will admit to that. But
well, that's part of the point of the whole discussion here. So I gratefully received that.
But I mean, but the point is that no matter what you do, you have to remember that your touch is in there, and for good or ill, that different people are going to perceive that touch in different ways. Some are going to perceive that as I'm grabbing you by the shoulders and walking you down a path, and then the other one is going to perceive it as, yeah, okay, maybe go that way instead of this way. And those are two very different design philosophies. One is the Apple design philosophy. um, but and the other's the Windows. I don't know, but that's not a clean analogy. But the point I'm trying to make there is
point holds.
Yeah, but that is something to the XR takes a lot of the restrictions off of the kind of things that even Steve Jobs was thinking of. I mean, this is a physical device. It has size. It requires a battery. It requires it. Remember the antenna gate from like 15 years ago?
You're holding it wrong. You're holding
it wrong. Right.
Yeah.
Those kind of restrictions don't apply in an XR world either. I
No,
can
but
make
they
a
do.
phone.
No, they do. But they are mostly here and here.
No, I'm not talking about the physical connection to the XR world. I'm talking about the XR world. Once you're in there, you could make a phone that's any shape, size, color, and so on and so forth if you wanted to. And so the design philosophy that works so well on the iPhone works well on a two-dimensional screen that's this size and so on and so forth. And people's fingers are this size and so on. But again, that game doesn't necessarily play in the same way in an XR world because we have infinite possibilities. And
okay, sorry. Tell me when you're done. I'm very excited about what you're saying.
And I mean every one of us has gotten frustrated with our iPhones at various times because there are limitations on what you can do on a whatever 6 inches long or 6 inch wide box that you can hold in your hand. You start running into I don't know how the hell my students they do papers on their iPhones or their phones. I'm like, how the hell do you do that? But of course I dictate those things. I dictate into my iPhone. I dictate papers into my iPhone. But when it comes to actually typing and editing and all that stuff, I want a keyboard.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so Tom, and again, Mohit, please do just barge in when you're ready. I think you are provocatively right and practically not completely right, Tom, because as you've seen many times, what I'm designing, I have these, let's be honest, stupid little index cards. We shouldn't need them, right? But I've also done the note text as in just black or white text in space. It's really hard to read, even though it's super high quality, because a design criteria for AR is that you can see the world, right? And the world is generally quite messy. So we do have constraints. But I think what you're really highlighting, Tom, is it's a different set of constraints. They're partly of our imagination, partly of our perception, partly over what the systems can deliver. And what I'm hoping from these sessions is that we will at least develop a better understanding of our ignorance of what we're looking at. Because, yeah, the kind of sentences we're throwing out here to provoke, well, maybe come up with little things.
Yeah, but, I agree with what Tom was saying. That we do have infinite possibilities when we are thinking of XR. But even with those possibilities, there are the limitation. Just as in physical devices, when you're designing, we have the limitation of how a user is able to handle. When Jeff Hawkins was designing the Palm Pilot, he used to carry just a wooden form factor of that just to see where it fits. So that is correct. That in XR we are not tinkering like that. But in XR, probably the greatest limitation is also apart from the paradigm shift in our thinking. Uh, Apart from that, there is the cognitive limitation as well. Just as in this. The problem that we started off with, the line problem, cutting straight through the user. So in XR, we can't really populate a whole lot of things, although we have infinite space. But right in front of your eyes, you can't have a whole lot of things. So even with yeah.
I think you are right and wrong for exactly the reason we talked about recently. If we bring art into it, right? Like we talked about Mark Rothko, which is on the surface literally just a red thing. It's nothing on the surface, right? There's got to be a way where we can fill the field incredibly richly with information that all the stuff we know now becomes wrong. Because the way it is now,
Yeah.
our approach now, Mohit, absolutely, but also your artistic perspective, it is such a strong hint that there is another way somehow.
No, absolutely correct. I was just hinting that we do have limitations. In those limitations, because those cognitive limitations that we can't really pay attention to things as they exist in the current medium. So we ought to redesign those things. Just as in the reply that the thinking with Claude that you put in the chat that it was hinting at using signifiers. So things, the relationships, how we represent relationships in on paper or on these mediums that don't have depth. Maybe those representations need to be rethought.
Tom, I think, Tom, can you read the quote you just put in? Because it's very relevant to what's happening right now.
So JCR Licklider said, no one knows what it would do to a creative brain to think creatively continuously. Perhaps the brain, like the heart, must devote most of its time to rest between beats, but I doubt that is true. I hope it is not, because interactive computers can give us our first look at unfettered thought.
So that's really fascinating on many levels, because one of the things is it is really important for the brain to sometimes not do anything, background thinking, default network, and all of that. So there's so many layers to that. And yeah, I mean, when we bring art into it, then very often we leave plain typography, as we should. And then we get into, I'm glad that, Tom, you brought up Don Norman, because the signifier and all of that stuff helps us. Now, there's also the question of who we are in space. So some of the things I've been thinking about to deal with the lines through the head issue is that you have an invisible sphere around your head that the lines cannot penetrate. So they just stop being rendered. So at a certain distance, they just stop. So if there's a line in space that stops, you may want to move back, and then the line will continue to go, right? So that's like Peter Dimitrius' interactivity way of dealing with it. But with there is something, I am loath to just fall back to color, because color is important and can be used in so many different ways. But there isn't that many that are, I mean, look at Mohit, he's sitting with blue and green in the background. They have strong meanings for us, right? There aren't that many colors that naturally fit outside of one person's personal preference, right? And once you start doing shapes, if you're having text, once you're beyond the rectangle, you're wasting space, which may be a good thing. But like so often, knowledge graphs are spheres, and then you have a title underneath. It's like, why do you need the sphere if you have the title, right? So is there something more malleable that actually does communicate something? I mean,
Smell.
that's not so bad because that's spatial, right? That's actually quite clever. As you move around the room, if you have smell things in your headset, it could change. But so the thing is,
Oh God, we're back to that. You know, one of the early somebody tried to develop a smell-o-vision in the early days of the internet that would transmit. You'd put in a smell at one end and it would come out the other after being digitized. I don't think it went anywhere, but I always thought that was really kooky.
Smell is fascinating because smell is not a linear set. Our senses is basically one per smell. There's a book. Hang on, I'm just going to close the door and stuff.
I think smell is even more subjective than sight.
Oh,
because
yeah.
somebody's this smells good to one person, they smell really bad to someone else, and there's no way to tell. With vision, you can go, this looks like a triangle. So if you agree with me that this looks like a triangle, it's a triangle, whereas with smell, this smells like Indian food, and what does that actually smell like? And of course, if you're in India, all food smells like Indian food.
It's not Swiss cheese. It's just
I think you just call it food.
Well, I don't think we have the discernment like dogs would have of
Right, exactly.
It's just okay. We don't have that kind of thing. So smells are kind of backgroundy.
Okay, that's your next project, Frodo. We need to build an XR for dogs.
So no one can know your
This
that's an old meme.
Based on smells.
This reminds me of a book that I was rereading. The notes that I had. It's on synesthesia by Richard Saitovic. So I read it because understanding how we understand it's really multi-sensory. Our senses, they are sort of unionizing in a sense. We don't really, when we are out in the world, we are not discreetly processing the visual, the olfactory, the sound, all these things. They are combinedly processed. So what through Richard Saltovic's book. So I made a note while I'll just reread it. So perception is fundamentally multisensory. So our interfaces and mediums do not have to be just visual or focus disproportionately on visual perception. Although what apart from visual perception we can include. I'm not really sure of. We can't really have olfactory probably. And even in visual perception, the static text. One of the things that made me think, I think it was 2 meetings back, was that how much of our ways of representing things, even when we are thinking of XR or of bringing out more of the cognitive load that is inside of our brains out in the medium, how much of the representation is coming actually from the textual limitations of the physical medium, the paper, and so even in visual perception, the static text does not necessarily have to be the precedence for the way we are imagining our interactions in XR. Because the technical capabilities of these mediums, even currently, even without XR, even if we are not working on XR, our technical capabilities afford us far greater opportunities than just, for example, just assembling things in paragraphs. We can probably animate a whole lot. more of the things that through that that the interactivity that is currently like we're talking and suddenly comes up Richard Sidgwick. We were just thinking of olfactory things. How how can we represent or create such affordances in the medium that enable such jumps, so to speak, so that we are not limited just by uh, the kind of the things that are right in front of us. Maybe I've gone far too abstract,
Oh, it's
but
interesting
like
you should say. No.
yeah. So what I mean to say is that we even through hypertext we wanted to enable the connection between things, right? So right now it is limited just to to the things that we can see. Maybe we can embed those hypertexts, but even that way of interacting with things gets limited. So how can we enable without predicting that if you're going through your resources, that if you're talking about olfactory things, that you would just be talking about Richard Sadowik. How can we have mm, various possibilities with their own dispositions, like maybe and how can we surface them? Currently our ways of surfacing them are far too sort of like linear. They are in list forms, so they don't really utilize the the depth, the kind of movements that a digital medium affords. Such ways of representing could easily be done even on paper, with staticities which are static, horizontal lists, vertical lists. Uh, Uh, so, so when we have various possibilities, that's why I really found it interesting. The first visual that Fro showed, it was like a field that was changing. Although but it was giving the the effect that it was changing. Maybe interactions. We want that during our interactions. Things are changing. We're not really surrounded by static possibilities, interacting with static things, because we are neither interacting with static things nor do we have static possibilities. So how do we make use of uh, our resources, our latent resources? Each of us, we can bring a whole lot of things to this discussion right now, but we get limited by two things. I think primarily, one is what all things we are able to recall right at this moment, and the other being the kind of the things that we recalled, have been able to recall. What kind of interactivities can we offer between those things? So, I mean, our working memories can't hold more than 7 ± 2. So that's like 5 to 9 items at a time. And the interactivity between those items uh, is not really that sophisticated as it could be if this was happening in a more interactive medium right in front of our eyes. And so, the Cytovix example I was bringing because the people who have synesthesia, uh, there in them one sense evokes other senses far greatly than than people who don't have senses, the normal people. So we each of us we smell our food, and uh, um, our olfactory senses are far more acute and greater in number than our senses of taste. I think we do have only 5 or 6 tastes, but olfactory we have quite a lot more. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, first of all, I want to say thanks particularly to you three, because there are so many things that go somewhere, and I'm so glad that you're happy with this being recorded and analyzed, because One thing you just talked about there, Mohit, I've been researching perception from a simple place to teach my son a little bit. And even when I try to simplify it, like the amygdala is the bit in the brain that is kind of a fear detector. But then we have a thing here, I think it is, on each side, obviously, that is telling the amygdala to just chill out. Right. So I'm saying that because synesthesia is seen as being, color and sound and all of this. We could maybe say that because Claude, who's helping me understand this, keeps telling me it's not that simple. There are more systems connected. And we're talking about systems thinking today, right, Tom? So even in our brain, it's a multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-highway. Synesthesia is a beautiful highlight of that. But already it's all connected. And also, if you don't mind, just to pull it all the way back to the beginning, something that should have been understood a long time ago by me, it's now coming because I kept asking for the last month with you guys, just one of the throwaway questions. If it's not text, what is it a direction to something else, or is it information in and of itself, right? So here's something that I hope you will find obvious now that it's come to me. When you write a note in space, by default, why should it be readable? Right? It could be a tiny little yellow sticky, so to speak. You just need to know it's there. And if you select it, maybe then it opens up. Maybe not even open, but just the act of selecting shows you more. So maybe we can have an environment where, obviously, the Ben Schneiderman, Zoom, Expand, and all of these things is something we all know very well. But maybe in this kind of environment, we can go further. So let's say we have, author names or humans over there. Do we always need to have their names visible? Maybe it's enough that there's something that says humans are there, and you select all of them. Suddenly, you have their names. What is your feeling, guys?
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea.
Well, authors are connections to their other work.
As well, yes, for sure.
So that's the way you should think of it in this context.
If you want to be really graphical about it, you could have, for instance, when you look at a piece of text from far away, you might see the shape of it, kind of like a strip chart or something like that. It's kind of a micro version of what the big chart might be. I'm thinking there may be some way so that, again, that visual reference that you have that says that this guy's name was a long name versus this guy's name was a short name. You kind of remember that so you can see he's third down from the top of the list. You got the spatial. That might be something to play with.
Yeah,
say it goes out of focus, but still has some other thing other than just yellow or just a yellow dot, a dot in a graph, like a D3 graph. It gets really annoying. You don't know, you got to, you turn the model a little bit, you lose track of where that thing you liked was.
So you need to be able
sure.
to mark it. But yeah. So the way I would flip this is asking the question, am I interested in the corpus of that author's work more than I'm interested in how that author connects to other authors' corpi? And that is a very different in the first case. Absolutely, I want to see the author's name because I need to be able to go in there and say, she wrote these 10 books about this subject. Oh, look, she wrote a book on gardening too. That's interesting. What did she bring to gardening that she didn't, that came from her systems analysis work or something like that? That sort of thing is really interesting to me. But the flip side of it, I also want to say, well, these are these other 5 authors who are basically making the same argument, but one of them is coming from this sphere, one of them is coming from that sphere, one of them is making a design argument, one of them is making a physics argument, one of them is making a writing argument, et cetera, et cetera. But they're all basically the same argument. And that tells me a lot more about the argument and looking at it from different perspectives, from different spheres. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the knowledge navigator is can I build a system that would show that? That, but that's different. So maybe, you've got modes. Maybe one mode is, okay, I want to explore the author, and one mode is I want to explore the idea. I think they're
Yeah.
both valid.
The drill down is different, and how you build. I think the graphical representations can be very similar, just the same way you got wiki pages in a lineup or
Right.
scrolled out on a cloud of
The, the,
this
the,
author is
the,
working with these people, or this author has these works. It looks the same. You got nodes, with spewing out from a central
yeah,
node,
the
which is
problem
the
is when you
author.
build a website, things always look, once you lay it down, you've made that decision in your design.
But
And
that's
you
part of
either,
your
you either
authoring.
do, yeah, but it is a process of authoring. But and that's fine if you're the one, if you're trying to tell the story and you want to make it your story, absolutely that is what you have to do. However, if you want to put your ideas out there in such a way that other people can construct stories with them, that's different. And you want to be able to see those ideas in a different context. And so the problem with Wikipedia, and I love Wikipedia, I mean, but it works in a certain way and it drives you in a certain way. Whereas, if it were a different format, if it were a heat map or something
Yeah.
like that, and I think they've seen some interesting things done with that. But if that were the case, then that would be a very different experience. I think, as far as the author name, do you need to see it? Well, if I'm just exploring ideas, eventually I am going to want to see the author name. But at first, it's clutter. It's I'm looking at the ideas and I'm looking for symmetries between the ideas. And then only once I've figured out, oh, look at this basis of ideas. Now give me those 5 authors who have those ideas, and then I can work my way backwards to their work and then go from there. So yeah, it depends on what mode you're in. Sometimes the author is essential, and sometimes it's a clutter. So
So this
yeah,
is a really key thing. And I think I agree with Peter's earlier statement that interactivity is the thing here because, just like in a graph, you should be able to toggle between what is a node and what is a connection. That they can, either one compares the other. So is the central point a quote? Is it a document? Is it a whole book? Is it a paragraph? Or is it the author? Or could also be the author's institution. But I want to show you something really cool. It's just so cool. Hang on a second. Um, so here is Claude, who you all know very well. And so just earlier today, I was setting up the MCP, as I told you. And then I said, make an animation based on the song that it made for today. And so I set it up. I don't know why that's selected, and here it is. So this you're already familiar with. I don't know why the text is selected. Please forgive me. And then, uh, so I asked about the Norman thing to get that in context to inspire us. And then I did something else. I said here, it's a little small, so I'm going to read you the beginning. Try to send this to imagine.art to make a video for, but first prepare it as a visual. I'd like to see what happens. And here's the quote. No one knows what it would do to create a brain to think creatively continuously. That quote from Licklider, right? So I told Claude to figure out a way to visualize it and send it to Imagine. That's what's happening. So Claude says, I'll do it in 2 moves. First, a designed visual with a quote's own metaphor. The heartbeat enacts the idea, rhythmic beats, etc. And the second move, right. So then it does kind of an outline, visual outline. I don't know what the heck. Then it sends it to Imagine, and it's still generating it. Isn't that a crazy thing that can be done? For
I
yeah,
all
love
of
it's
looking at
cool.
your workflow. Thank you.
it's wild, right? I mean, this is I would never do this if it wasn't for the discussion today of you guys pulling and pushing in different directions, right? So in one way, this is absolutely ridiculous. But if you look at basically all sci-fi, synthetic beings are all very overly logical. Not anymore. So I will reshare when that there is a result there. But
So the
um,
question is, does it cheapen or deepen the conversation? And I definitely fall on the deepened side of things, but the fact that you can generate this stuff so quickly does cheapen it. So you can't look at the process. Again, gets back to the way I'm doing my classes. I want to try to grade process as much as product. It's not, do you make a good picture? It's, were you just lucky and got a good picture, or have you actually thought through what makes a good picture to do it consistently? It's like any sport, as a golfer, anybody can hit a hole in one, but can you do it consistently? And so on and so forth. I mean, there's some sports which not anybody can do, but you get the point. It's a lot easier to do the trick once, but to do it consistently, uh, then that's the trick, right?
I
And so
think
you got to
that
do the same thing with information and knowledge.
that's doing it consistently
Thinking.
is probably very close to the definition of a professional. I must agree with you, but I'm not a professional. I'm an artist. So my job in my DNA is to say, F it, let's try something completely nonsensical to see what comes out of that. And I think that's
But you're
very
doing that
close.
as a learning experience. And when you do
Mm.
that, you build another chunk of knowledge that you can apply to the things that you used to do. And you go, oh, you know what? I can go after this particular photographic problem in a very novel way because I've already done this crazy thing over here. You know,
You're absolutely right, Tom. And not to be patronizing, but to tell you from how I understand it, the real difference between the right and the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere generally deals with stuff that is learned, that you know how to ride a bike and all of that stuff. The right hemisphere tends to concentrate on things that are new, that you don't know how to do. So let's say you're learning how to ski. You're teaching both hemispheres at the same time. The right one is better at the new bit, trying to figure it out. The left one takes a lot longer, but once it's set, you go on autopilot from here, driving, skiing, whatever, right? So, Tom, I think you are absolutely right in highlighting how and so many cliches in culture about right and left side of the brain. But if we don't look at it as creativity, if we look at it as novelty, one of the things that I feel reflected in your talk about your teaching is that you want your students to feel creatively brave to try stuff. So many of our tools have been over designed. The design has been forced upon us, right? And, and as designers, our job is to allow people to have a wider use of the tools. And what design-wise, that's a challenge because, a pencil, if you have a high level of skill, is an incredibly flexible tool. But it is an incredibly unflexible tool compared to this, if you want to record something. So there's that thing of skill versus, skill and flexibility and all of that good stuff. Anyway, it still hasn't rendered, by the way. Takes a while. Takes a while.
that'll get better.
Hopefully, it
But
doesn't chew up all your tokens.
this is what they're for. I accidentally got into a higher cost and I saw the bill and it's like I clicked the wrong button. But literally, this is what it's for. But imagine when these things become faster and we can, in the space, like Mohit comes here with so many perspectives that are, some are new to me, some are reminders. Imagine, okay, it has rendered. I'm going to zoom in and show it to you guys because it's kind of crazy. So let's say, a few years in the future, we should be able to expect this to be done instantaneously, right? Oops. No, I don't need to download. Yeah, okay. Let's download it. Yes, yes, yes. And then, sorry, I'm taking the whole anticipation out of it. Okay, are you ready? This is what one AI said to another AI.
Like those GitHub commit visualizations.
Yeah. That's
Um,
I'm going to put it here in the chat in
I
case.
think like fractals, we're going to start discovering that this repeats itself. That things that we consider to be invisible are actually, when you make them visible, the same as the things that we've seen visibly in some ways, because at a subconscious level, we've kind of drawn them that way to begin with. And so I don't know.
That is very interesting.
Maybe not. I could be wrong, but it's an interesting speculation. Actually, I was thinking about that graphic though, because it's inspirational in the sense of thinking about the problem that we're talking about here. So when you dive into the XR, let's assume for a moment you're what you're trying to do with the XR is develop your own ideas to be able to say write something or make something or whatever that is. Okay. So that initial explosion at the bottom, and then as a way of saying, okay, the XR combined with the AI can say, okay, here's your tree. Now go explore it, right? And that it doesn't necessarily. So or to use the Ted Nelson metaphor, ripples in the pond. It's that creates a disturbance in the force, and that then you can explore all of those different tendrils. That is an interesting way of thinking about it, and that's also a way that you can design it, but also at the same time make it completely bespoke to the person who's using it. Because it would start out, you would say, okay, these sets of ripples happen, and so therefore I'm going to show it in this way. But when I drop when I go and I drop my idea and it starts to figure out all of the different adjacent ideas and then adjacent and adjacent. And so you get this tree that you can then explore and see, and then takes you to unexpected places. Again, that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the knowledge navigator. Effectively, I'm dropping sets of ideas in and then seeing what kind of trees they make in the form of conceptual maps.
I am
But that would
wary,
also
though.
be a really good design thing. I
It's
think
kind
you
of
could figure
funny.
out how to do that.
It's kind of funny how AI makes us all hypocrites, at least me, because when you say it, I'm wary of the AI doing the thinking for us. But when I say it, it's entirely part of a thing,
The AI is your friend and the other is enemy. It's this us and them thing going on.
Yeah. When you use it, you're cheating. When I use it, it's entirely useful. Yeah.
And you know what? Honestly, that is one of the biggest problems with AI in this country, is because more and more people are using it and finding it incredibly useful. At the same time, they're going, AI is evil and we need to stop it, et cetera, or regulate and all this sort of thing. And I'm like,
It's becoming like alcohol or cigarettes or something like that.
right.
It's a sin, but
What's
it's not.
Yeah.
What is it? Protestants don't recognize the Pope, Jews don't recognize Jesus, and Methodists don't recognize each other in the liquor store.
Oh, yeah.
Or Amish don't recognize each other at the computer store.
That is, yeah, that's quite good. So this has been very enlightening and also very frustrating, because one thing I could imagine now is um, mentally us imagining developing an environment that is much more squishy. We don't have things hard edged. So you have a squishy ball of authors over here. You pull it out and you see, more like this rather than right. Once you have that, and you have different levels of what's actually being shown, because at a certain a certain point, Tom is what I was trying to say.
That's sort of Tom.
Yeah, so in the environment
Yeah.
I've developed, if you select something, then it'll do connective lines. You may want to have a different mechanism through which you see that if it is an author, not everybody has to be an author, but if it is an author, their contributions, their writings.
Mm-hmm.
And as I think you might remember, I have ugly buttons, but at least the ugly buttons are only there when something is selected. You remember having seen that, right, guys? Let me
Ugly is
show you.
something that can be designed out. That's not a conceptual problem. It's a
I
execution
think
problem, and you're limited by the OS.
I don't think it's that simple. Let me show you. Because even if the OS allows it allows me to do whatever I want. Ask AI, edit, and all meaning select all that are the same. Edit means obviously edit, and ask AI gives me a menu of prompts. How do I give them? How do I make that accessible? We're going to do voice at one thing, but at a certain point, it's good to have something to pick at.
I think you got the group selection problem. I mean, are you going to lasso a bunch of things? Are you going to say, just take these relationships? That's my working set, or that's the data I'm going to send to the AI or off to my document that's going to generate or whatever. Can you take an automated one and say, oh, I don't like Looklight. I don't want Looklighter in there. I want to do more modern authors just because I'm Pictell. It's just the way I want it. Can I do that with that selection set to say, well, just get rid of that guy so I get the other guy's stuff or another?
The way you can in the current system is you would hide Licklider. That's one way you can do it.
Okay.
Another way, well, I mean, the basics is you either do a manual selection, tap, 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 or you select by category, persons, event, place, concept, blah, 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 right? Because we cannot do the lasso selection yet. If Apple provides a way, and then obviously there has to be decision, does the lasso go to infinity, so to speak, when you do this? Or actually, that's really nice, Peter, what you did. You made a kind of an around thing.
Ice cream scoop kind of thing. You're going to scoop out something or like a backhoe. There's a sort of a radius of stuff that I'm going to grab. Some of the bigger systems where you have, hundreds of thousands of nodes and you want to swim through them, you get that kind of you're going to miss some things, but some things go between your fingers or whatever, but you get closer to something that way. Yep. I've seen that in a few deep big data visualizations. I haven't seen it in visualizations of a document or text or something where you actually care intimately about what the individual things you're pointing to, because it's a person or it's an important thing you want to deal with, versus a statistical anomaly of a bunch of atoms or quantum computing kind of stuff or something like that.
Oh wow, you just started this. Okay, sorry.
Just thought I'd show this in the background while we're thinking about that. Yeah, I mean the limitation and the opportunities is really fascinating. Even the thing of how to, as you just said, how to select something is not the same as the general world. So did you see what Claude wrote here? I don't generate realistic likenesses of real people, so rather than rendering, I evoked his world, an anonymous figure seen from behind. So it did that, and now it's sending it to Imagine to.
It's interesting that using an oscilloscope. That's kind of appropriate for the era of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this is
Again, that's how AIs work. Is they go, okay, Licklider 1950s, oscilloscope. I mean, dot dot dot, and then you know, Licklider audio, uh, um, audio fast. I mean, he was interested in creating audio devices and using computing to do that. And so that's the bridge. He's a psychologist by training, but if you're going to measure sound waves, an oscilloscope is how you do it, and so on and so forth, yada yada yada. And so, yeah, that's how it got there.
It actually finished. It was quicker than the earlier one. I'm going to show you that, but I wanted to be ready properly this time. To the world
Must
we
have
live
heated
in.
up the cache there
Yeah, that was
on
quite
the
odd.
servers.
Hang on, just get rid of you guys. Okay, here we go. It's only a 5-second video. That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
kind of what I've been writing about too. It's weird.
let's never use AI again in the future. That was a bit much. Tom, I'll send you this. I'll send you all in case you want to. These aren't, art or anything. So if you want to use them in whatever capacity, feel free. But yeah, I'm now going to try to. Hang on, let me just search for something. 1 second, guys.
Funny, I've been
Kind of,
naming.
I've been trying to look for public access to things that they're doing with, like, the fighter cockpit visualizations. And there's a lot of psychological work there that I think is open, not buried in DoD things that might be interesting to apply to say how they're making those visualizations work. Uh,
If
the
you have links,
antecedents to what they're using in those
please
things.
please share links on that. That's very interesting.
If I can dig them out, the problem there's so many antecedents, and they're just kind of just taking stuff from the open source and stuff from the '90s and throwing it into that whole the the bubble that the pilot flies in, and um, I want to try to find more of the antecedents for that are publicly available.
So you can all see this, right? Something you've seen many times. But maybe we should look at the different states even more, where more is shown on select, not just on open. Like those things on top there are sections. We don't need to see all of that all the time, do we?
Did you maybe make the sections different colors so you can see, oh, rather than the line, you have that you have the problem with the spectrum. You can only do,
So
maybe a dozen colors before you can't tell them apart.
the sections, when you're in space, you can't tell them apart because they're quite deep, they're quite thick. So that helps with the idea that there's more there. There's more heft to them. But yeah,
Maybe
so
font weight or something like that. Bolder, less bold, if not colors.
we do use that. We have a regular fonts, then we have italic for people, like a signature, bold for locations, bold italic for institutions. But that's all we've done so far, just to keep it like a basic kind of thing. But yeah, it's there's so many
I just have to
opportunities
save
for
up and get
sure.
an Apple headset and see what you.
Yeah, it'll be public relatively soon. I'm going to have it. Actually, I might as well share the. Yeah, Peter shared this video. I'm going to share it with all of you now. This is the one on Git. I know it's got music. There you go. So, in what way is this useful? I'm not saying it
It,
isn't, but if you can elaborate your
it's a
thoughts.
time sequence of commits and who's doing what. So little people are the committers, and the bubbles are the code they've touched and edited at a particular point in time. So it shows activity across. If you had a large repository, but you can see how you get these explosions of someone just created a whole bunch of files there or has edited those. And
Where's this
Haven't
from again?
Gorse, it's a tool called Gorse that reads the Git log.
Okay.
And people have used this on, like I say, development, but it's more like a piece of artwork in the end. It's like, oh, here's
Oh yeah.
showing what's happening, and you throw it on the background with some colors, and it goes looks good in the lobby of a startup, or
But
a
if you
company.
really want to understand reality, find look at art.
Well, and that's sort of it. You get some sort of idea. It says, oh, and here in the 2000s, this was happening, and this here's a couple of people who did a lot of work. Then you can kind of put the names of people on there and say, this is Bill doing this. You get some
I think
feeling for who's interacting with your code.
that's what I wanted to reflect on earlier. Information is not abstract, right? Often we design information systems as though it were. But Tom talked about an author. He wants to see this and that. That is a real thing. So I think in that visualization, having the people as little people icons actually adds real value. So the question is then, in the system, what are the things that you want to have set aside to be more accessible visually, right? Do you want different kind of papers to be a different kind of icons, like Peter talked earlier about having like a front page squished down, like so it becomes an image. Do we want little globes for places, or what do we care about? What should always be bang immediately there, and what should be that's a bunch of that stuff. Now I make it clear, or is that not how we should think of it?
These are some images I was playing with for the Substack I'm working on about this week. Is where do you end and where does the computer begin? And how that line has really gotten blurry. But this is actually a photograph of me circa 1989, 1987 on a Mac. And that's the original photograph. So I thought the retro modern aspect of it would also be funny. I'm going to probably go with the less cyborg version of it, but
Well, I mean, today we have the extended mind and all of that stuff very firmly in our community. I forget some of the philosophers' names, but this book back from the early 90s that I just put a link to by Bruce, I can't pronounce his last name. I think it's
was
Maslish.
Kevin Kelly, the hive mind, right?
Yeah, he also had interesting stuff. But so the fourth discontinuity, it says humanity thought that we were separate from the skies. That was the first discontinuity. We're not. And then it was we are separate from the animals. We are not. And then I can't remember the third one. And the fourth one is we think we're separate from machines. We are not. So yeah, very much on that.
Oh, that hurts. Oh, okay, good. $4.29. I can handle that. I'm sitting here going, looking at the hardback, and I thought it said $1.47, but no, that's a five, not a dollar sign. Cool. Yeah, thanks for the header on this one. I'm going to grab this. This is from the early 90s.
Yeah, 93. It was
Okay.
foundational for me. It really helped me play some of this. I've never heard of the guy in other context, which is weird.
There's a lot of stuff hiding in the 90s that were my formative years too. It's like, whatever happened to that?
Looks like this only
Oh,
made its
it's
way
this.
into the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's odd. I mean, I search on Amazon here because it's just simple, but
But every one of the used copies is from the UK.
oh. Oh, well, you'll just have to read it when you hear them. Fair enough.
No, I'm getting a copy. It's just going to take me a few weeks.
Cool.
From the Cotswold Library, it looks like.
Yeah, you doing an interlibrary loan? You doing using that system?
No, I'm buying it, but apparently they're
Yeah.
selling it.
Let me
Why
see
does
if
it?
it'll take. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, this is what's going on. I'm looking at it on the UK Amazon. Your link sent me to the. You
Yeah,
sent me
you're
to
in
a
the wrong
foreign
one. Watch it.
Amazon.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
sent me to a foreign Amazon. Okay.
It's not foreign. You're foreign.
Well, considering that Amazon started here, I'm going to have to challenge that assumption.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. This shelf here is not very well organized.
Okay, what's it called again? Maslish.
Need that tool where you take the picture of the shelf and it indexes them for you.
Yeah, I think I need to do that. I think so. Of course, it's fun to get lost as well in the books sometimes, but not every time. I guess I don't have it in this room.
What? You don't keep all your books in one room?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, I got to keep picking them up and putting
So this
them
says 90.
back.
This says 95, not 93, but I'll
Maybe
go with that.
reprint then, I don't know.
No, it says it's August 30th, 1995. Maybe that's how long it took to get to the US.
Yeah,
Sometimes it
Google
takes
says
a while.
93, according to the Google.
At least it's not like fine wine that doesn't cross the ocean, isn't that? Just kidding. So here's an interesting tiny detail. So I asked it to do another video. And while it's waiting for Imagine, it is fully capable of answering other questions. So it says here, so this is on that book. These are Claude comments, by the way. Just thought for once, I will give you some of the thinking.
Yeah, I do that sort of stuff all the time. It's an
Yeah.
insane time suck too, though, because I mean, it's like rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Oh, this is interesting. I'm going to do this.
Mm.
Oh, look at this. I swear it added a week to the amount of time it took me to write my entry for the future of text volume for this last year. But I
I
learned
can.
a lot more in the process, so that was good. You know,
The
and that's what I
learning
keep
versus the
telling people.
deliverable.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing that I think we're going to have to get away from. The deliverable is not the win there. It's the process of getting to the deliverable because you can generate multiple deliverables out of the same process if that process is particularly rich. And so the thing I try to tell people is that AI doesn't necessarily make you faster, but it does make you, it's not a quantity thing, it's a quality thing. And if you treat it like that, you're going to get so much more out of it than if just generate cheap crap like a Chinese factory that is completely easily replicable. Then that's what you'll have. But if you take the time to sit there and polish it like an artist would, you're going to get a much better product because this is an incredibly powerful polishing tool. And so, yeah.
Just a little pushback on the Chinese factory.
I couldn't
Yeah.
think of a good. They do make some cheap product, and they
Uh,
do. If you go to what's the name of that Timu? They
Timu.
they have that. Yeah,
They
they have
also
that.
made this, you know.
I know. I said cheap. I didn't say all Chinese products were cheap. I said a cheap product from a Chinese factory, which you have to admit exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If you buy a rubber ducky, it probably comes from a cheap product from a Chinese factory these days.
So I just got a summary here from Claude about the book. So really briefly, Freud, not me. Freud described three historic blows to human pride. First was Copernicus, we're not the center of the cosmos. Darwin, we are continuous with the animal kingdom, not above. And Freud himself, we are not even masters of our own minds. The unconscious govern most of us. So then Maslow added a fourth discontinuity, the deeply held belief that humans are categorically separate from the machines they build. He argued this boundary is as illusory as the first three, and that recognizing its falseness is the next blow to our self-importance and our next step in self-understanding. So the core claim is co-evolution that we obviously have discussed, and so on.
Oh God. So in other words, in the 19th century, we killed God, and now we're killing ourselves.
Almost literally, you think about it sometimes.
I actually think we need to reinvent God.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I say that is
But if
my
you
professor.
recognize that it's an invention, you can't.
No. Well, money is an invention, and
Yeah.
that's being reinvented.
Yeah.
Politics and culture, but what I'm
Money is a
thinking about,
reflection of value, though. And so value
uh,
is something
no,
that's measurable.
it,
Whereas
I guess
God
a
is a reflection of
reinvention of
faith.
understanding, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I try
money
to
is,
avoid the reference to
You
God
can't
and a
invent
thing.
faith, is my point.
Faith. I think faith is
yeah,
what you got to talk about, your
uh, uh,
faith in
it's a
something.
little. It's a little different. I mean, just briefly on the money, Tom. Money is one instantiation of value. There are many ways value can be instantiated, right?
Sure,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what I mean is the, the the way that we as a species are dealing with each other on the planet is, let's be honest, pretty stupid. It's not of the level of intellect that the three of us here would wish that it would be. Um, so what I mean is, so for instance, Karen Armstrong, who I may have mentioned before, she used to be a nun, Catholic nun, then she became an atheist, and then doing all kinds of things against religion, and then she became a bit of a scholar. She really makes the case for God. She actually has a book called The Case for God. And Peter, when you use the word faith, it's very, very aligned with that. It's a little bit different, but the point is quite simply to feel that there is something special. There was a book, that my professor Ed recommended many years ago, where the point of the book was we've gone from the tyranny of the king to the tyranny of many, right? To the tyranny of logic. Like the Vietnam War was a logic war. It wasn't very, um, it wasn't very good. It was all about the numbers and all of that stuff, right? So the point of what I'm saying is that organized religion, I think we all agree, is a very weird thing because somebody has to do the organizing. And I'm happy to go on record to say that I don't think Jesus would have considered himself a Christian, right? It's a bit ludicrous. But if we're going to
Well, it's
get
kind
to a
of
point,
self-referential if you think about it.
well, a lot, even within Christianity, a lot of it was written by Paul, who never met Jesus. Jesus never read the Bible, right? And so on. And there are wrinkles for this for all the major faiths in the world. But all I'm saying is, if even through the work we're doing, if it just comes down to logic, it's very logical to punch someone in the face if you don't like them, so to speak, right? But but to have a love for our planet and other people, in some way, that goes beyond that. So this is a video that was made based on the book, The Fourth Discontinuity. I have
I
no
don't.
idea
I
what
think
it means.
that's way too generic. It doesn't tell me anything.
It doesn't tell me anything either, and I think it actually is backwards because discontinuity, right? I mean, it's kind of neat, but it certainly isn't useful in the sense of some of the other stuff. I would agree. But that's the imagination right now of AI. I didn't tell it what to do.
It's not imagination; it's association.
So Douglas Adams, in context of what we talked about earlier, have I mentioned virtual graffiti to you guys? So I had a meeting with him a long, long time ago, and he was talking about virtual graffiti. And what he meant was, imagine, obviously, different devices than no real AR. Even with a portable device, you write something about where you are, and that can only be read when you're physically in that space.
Niantic, Pokemon.
Pokemon goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely became that kind of a thing. But one thing that annoys me with the development environment for vision now is the system can't really know the room. It's for privacy, of course, but it is really infuriating, so to speak, that you can't have up in that corner of the room always this knowledge thing. It orients based on your starting position, not on the room. So I'm trying to see if we can start doing these little widgets in the room to work on that. But anyway, that just took me in that direction.
No, I mean, I find Douglas Adams incredibly inspirational half the time, and because again, it's one of those things that yanks you out of the serious way of looking at things. And I think I made this comment about stand-up comedians. They're the reason they're funny is because they're looking at reality from a skewed perspective that ultimately makes sense. The good ones are really use that as a way of doing social commentary, but that's really the nature of comedy. Last reference for the day because I do need to bail on time today because I have a 1 o'clock appointment. The is Isaac Asimov wrote a short story called The Jokester. Are you familiar with this one? back in the 1950s, of course, they thought the computers were going to get bigger and bigger to be more powerful, and so they had this massive computer, and they had these priests who were allowed to access it, and they were all very serious and all this other thing. And this guy, one person starts to uh, they think he's going nutty, but he starts plugging in all the jokes, putting jokes into it. And they're like, what are you missing using up this processing power, analyzing jokes? And finally they haul him into the office and he goes, oh, well, I finished my query. And basically I was doing an analysis of humor. And the what I discovered is that other than puns, which aren't funny, all jokes are exactly the same. They work exactly the same. They just change the language around them. But the more disturbing thing is there is no way for that to be true unless it was designed, the jokes were designed by an alien intelligence. And at that point, suddenly nothing is funny anymore.
Puns are funny. Puns are hilarious.
No, you don't laugh at puns. You groan at them.
Did you hear about the drummer who had 2 daughters? He named them Anna 1, Anna 2. That's more than a groan.
No, it's a groan. It's definitely a groan.
Yeah.
Have you also
Definitely.
noticed how puns are no longer referred to puns generally? For some reason, they're branded as dad jokes.
Yeah, because only dads tell them these days. I mean, when I was growing up in my family, we would sit around when we had I'm not just talking about my immediate family, but my uncles and aunts and all. We had these big we would basically try to outpun each other. And that was very painful for those who didn't participate. But it was like jazz. It was like word jazz. It was really fun. But unfortunately, that's honed my punning instinct to a level which is painful for those around me.
Yeah.
I actually made it. I won't tell the story today, but I actually did a trilingual pun one time. This is one of my proudest achievements
Oh, come
because
on, tell us the pun.
okay. So I was in a Latin class, okay, and was trying to understand Latin grammar. And in Latin, you can rearrange the words in pretty much any order, but because it's the tense of the word that tells you where it belongs mentally. And so I asked, there's a word called te, which is two essentially, but you can put te anywhere you want in the sentence and still have it make sense. And I said, well, what if you put it in there twice? And the teacher was like, I think you can do that. And I go, so you're saying two te is not too much?
I barely have enough Latin in me to understand that from your explanation.
Well, I started in Latin, I went to French for and then to English for too much. So anyway,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
It's fun.
appreciate.
hey,
I
I did that
appreciate
joke
it.
when I was a 20-year-old in college or something like that, early 20s at least. So anyway, I will let you guys go because I do need to bail.
Yeah,
It's been
me
fun.
too. And thank you guys for today. I look forward to Monday week.
See y'all
And
next week.
lots to think about, and records will be made. Bye for now. Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
guys. Bye.